Hi, welcome to Eloquent Gospel. The purpose of this video is to talk about Genesis 3. Genesis 3 is a major turning point in the Bible. It records man's rebellion, and it sets up the whole arc of the story on why God had to send himself in human flesh as Jesus Christ to reconcile man back to God. It was in Genesis 3 that man was initially separated from God. So it's a very, very important chapter. I'm going to try to summarize it, but I'm also going to try to talk about what's happening both in the background and the doctrinal impact of it. Okay? So the first thing you need to know is the angel rebellion. All right? It is not mentioned in Genesis 3, but it is mentioned other places in the Bible. You can find more information about Satan in Isaiah 14:12-15, Ezekiel 28:14-16, Luke 10:18, and even Revelation 21-3. If you want to, if you wanted to know about Revelation. But the idea is that God has an enemy. All right, there was an angel rebellion. The angels, like us, have free will. The angels, like us, were in the direct presence of God initially. The angels, like us, were perfect in all their ways until iniquity was found in them. Iniquity was found in them. Okay? Although there is salvation for man, there appears to be no salvation for angels. Okay? So, the angels rebelled against God, specifically one head angel, Lucifer or Satan or the devil, whatever you want to call him. Okay? This enemy of God ends up showing up in the Garden of Eden. Okay? And he tempts Eve. He tempts Eve with lies. He lies to her, and he also says, you can be like God. The verses in Genesis 3, 4, and 5, the serpent said to the woman, you will surely not die, for God knows in the day that you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God. Now, in Genesis 2, God had told Adam, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or you will die. Okay? Or you will die. Now, there were two trees of significance in the Garden of Eden. There was the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Adam and Eve could eat of every tree in the Garden of Eden but this one tree. And that is the one tree that Satan tempts Eve with. Eve believes the lies, she disobeys God, she eats of the fruit, and then she gives some to her husband, Adam. Adam also eats of the fruit, okay? And they immediately become conscious of their nudity. In Genesis 2, they were naked and felt no shame. In Genesis 3, after they sinned, they felt shame. They hid from God. They hid from God. God confronts them. He asks them where they are. Obviously, he knows where they are. This is an anthropomorphism. You should watch a video on that. But basically, God, confronts them. They do not take responsibility for their sin. This is a general trait of man. Man always does this. He always wants to blame others rather than himself, rather than taking responsibility for his own iniquity. So Eve blames the snake. Adam blames Eve and God. Okay? God curses them all. He's having none of it. The serpent has to slither on its belly for the rest of its life and eat dust. So this is the creature we now know as snakes, right? Eve will have pain in childbirth. So this has to do with, these are inherited curses. So all of women will now have pain in childbirth because of it. And Eve will also desire her husband, but her husband will rule over her. This has to do with authority. Whereas before there was no battle of the sexes, now there is a battle of the sexes. And then in regards to Adam, Adam will work by the sweat of his brow. So whereas before work was maybe much easier, now it is a toil. Okay? They are thrown out of the Garden of Eden, and they are separated from the tree of life. Okay? So God puts an angel next to the tree of life with a fiery sword. And the idea is that they need to be separated from the tree of life lest they live forever. So God did not want mankind with sin to live forever. Now, it should be stated, and this is just talking about doctrine, that all souls are eternal. Whether you live in heaven or hell, you're eternal. What is happening here is a specific physical body. And so in Genesis 2, God warned Adam, you will die if you eat of the forbidden tree. And that's exactly what's happening in Genesis 3. And there is a wrath that takes place on sin because of, Romans 6:23, for the wages of sin is death. There is a physical, natural curse that happens when you sin. You will die. That God's justice on man is that they will die. But in regards to a different type of death, so you have physical death, you also have spiritual death. Spiritual death is being separated or exiled from the direct presence of God. That is what happens. And that is the exact same thing that happened to Satan. Satan rebelled against God. God threw him out of heaven. Man rebelled against God. God threw him out of Eden. Okay? That is why Jesus Christ had to come. God loved man. God wanted to reconcile man to himself. God became flesh, lived a perfect life, laid his life down for mankind as a substitutionary death, rose from the dead, and then through faith, he will impute that righteousness, that perfection back onto man. The perfection that we lost in the Garden of Eden is the same perfection that God wants to restore to us. We were separated from the tree of life in the Garden of Eden, but in Revelation 22, I think 13 and 14, maybe 12 and 13. God wants, I think the verse goes like, blessed are those whose robes are washed, that they may have the right to the tree of life and that they may enter the city by the gate. So God is setting up an arc in Genesis 3 where there is a fall, and then through Christ there is a restoration. Okay? That's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If you have a question about a specific Bible verse, a doctrine, or just the Christian faith in general, you can write your question in the comment section below, and perhaps I can answer that question through another video. Also, if you're interested in learning more about supporting this channel, you can look at this list that I have on the screen next to me, and I'd really appreciate any help. Thank you very much. Bye.